Hey, good afternoon. It is roughly like 1:05 here in the Arizona time zone, and many of you are in the East Coast or Midwest. Hopefully, you will join me. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes before I get into the dark side of the empath. I believe this is like one of the most popularly requested video because we have many wounded healers, empaths. Call them the wounded healer archetype, but they're also empaths. Okay, so actually, let me switch it over because this is the dark side. So I'm gonna put it on the dark side. Okay. Anyway, enough of that stuff. So I'm not seeing you guys, and so sometimes Facebook does that. It doesn't give me the opportunity to see who's coming in. So I'm going to just start addressing some of the concerns. Now, in an empath or the wounded healers, for the years, most likely there was some trauma. Something bad happened, okay? And you guys know what I'm talking about. It can stem from like family issues, violations, sexual violations, neglect, physical abuse, maybe having family members that are just a bit needy or relying, not really in a lot of people who are empaths feel that they have to grow up really fast and they have to deny themselves and meet the needs of other people. Okay. They most likely have, sometimes, they're always helping their mom or someone in the family who's very sick. And they just seen a need and filled it. And then most people just started to rely on this person as being the strong one or the one who's reliable. The problem with that is a lot of people, when they become a wounded healer, especially when they're young, they don't really get a chance to explore their authentic self. They don't really get a chance to explore who they are. They are denying themselves for other people. So maybe we're talking about like a person like Michael Jackson. He was a beautiful soul, but he had a gift. And his parents kind of like forced him to deny his youth, deny his growth for performance or money. Eventually, as you know, most people saw Michael Jackson as wounded, totally wounded. He was disconnected from his true self. And all he really wanted to do was have an authentic life. So he had to wear this mask. But we all saw him as innocent and childlike, actually, So besides that, the empath is what you would call the wounded healers. If you want to do more research on this, you want to look up Carl Jung. And the Jung is the Jung. And so what happens with empaths, like I said, there was something traumatic that happened to them that made them extremely sensitive to the emotional needs of others. And as they age and get older, most people who are empaths find themselves in, what would you say, the service of helping other people. And, but they're constantly denying themselves, constantly drained, having these cycles of helping people, feeling great, and then burning out. So, helping people and burning out over and over again, and not feeling safe or comfortable to receive help. Because they've never really got a chance to be vulnerable and receive. So many people who have they're like cups with holes in them. They're not even able to hold, their energy. So back to the trauma, when they were a child, they actually shattered their aura field. It kind of actually so for example, if you have trauma, something that happens is you actually may have a soul wound inside of you, and it allows you. You really don't have protection. You don't have a hedge around you. So you are feeling other people's, sensing other people's emotions, feeling sensations in your body that are just draining. So you go home and you're just tired and burnt out. Why you didn't do much, but tired. You in public places and you have an inner struggle between focus on what you need to do and the needs of other people. Okay, so basically, as I said, your soul has been splintered. Your soul has been splintered. So the hope in this is that, one, you really need to make it very important to learn how to say no, to set boundaries. Because a lot of people who are empaths feel really guilty and very ashamed to ask for things. They feel ashamed and guilty when they need help. They were taught as a kid to deny themselves, so they just have incredibly shame and guilt for saying, hey, can you help me? And most people mistake them as being extremely strong when they're really the people that look the most strong are the people that need help the most. Okay, so you need to exercise the no. You have to exercise the no button. No. When you first start doing it, you're going to be stumbling. You might just say no, and people are like, oh, that's rude. But as you practice on it, you're going to start finding ways to refine it, to say in a way that when you feel well, I have a great analogy for it. When an empath will actually give themselves away to a point where they're -5. So, for example, you're in a helping, yes, empaths do tend to attract narcissists, okay? So, for example, you may be at a 10 as an empath. You're at a 10, positive 10, and you may date a person that is a -100. Where does that leave you at? You're at a -90. So you're burnt out, and this person is feeding off of that over and over again, and you never get a chance to be positive. And what I mean by positive, we're talking about protons above 0, so you're running on an empty tank. So obviously you're going to break down. You're going to have heart problems. You're going to develop disabilities, diabetes, mental health issues, because you're running on an empty. And you're going to attract people who can sense that you deny yourself. So, one, saying no, and it's going to be extremely hard to say no, to spend some time healing yourself or getting therapy, and getting over the shame of asking for help, isolating yourself from negative people, learning what a negative person looks like, because they don't look like a troll. So you have to learn how to identify what is good, what is bad for you. And this might be a lifelong trip for you. So you might want to learn how to figure out what is good, what is bad, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. Another thing about empath, because they're so been traumatized, they can't sense, like a lot of people who are narcissists, they bite you. They're like vampires, so they'll bite you. And empaths can't feel the bite. They can't feel the bite because there's wounds in them, and they're already triggered and emotionally, and they're overriding their common sense. So they don't feel the bite. They only feel afterwards when they've been sapped out, but they have not learned to identify inner boundaries and external boundaries. So that's another point I wanted to go over, that you need to learn how to seriously understand what boundaries is and seriously start practicing boundaries. You might want to seriously consider going to therapy. I really think a great therapy would be EMDR, because it teaches you to go back to your soul retriever, to go back to your childhood and make it safe for you to forgive and to learn how to gather up all your splintered parts of your soul. It's very painful, but then the trauma was very painful. So you need to retrieve all your shattered selves that's floating around in your aura to close those wounds, okay? This is going to be very painful, and that's why a lot of empaths, they run away from it, because they really don't want to look at themselves and they don't want to face themselves. So sometimes you have a lot of nightmares, and empaths are just they avoid looking at themselves. In fact, many tend to don't believe that they deserve love, and they sometimes self-loathe, really they self-loathe, and because they're suffering, and they're not attracting people who can actually, their family members haven't modeled to them what appropriate boundaries are. So they don't know. They don't know until maybe it's too late or something really horrible happens. Empaths are really known for having stalkers. People that you have to learn how to cut cords with people too. So these people, they feed off your energy. They're not going to just let you go. So you need to learn how to identify, take times, and stop trying to be a superhero. Stop trying to save the world. Let the world, you did your job. You did your job for a long time. It's time for someone to take care of you or take care of yourself. That's the hardest thing in life. But if you want to have a transformation in your life, you got to learn how to say no and spend some time, and I speak from great, I'm not just reading books. I'm not just someone who went to school about this. I myself have experienced a great deal of suffering, a great deal of trauma. I had to help raise my family at a very young age. I had to deny myself as a child at a very young age. And I became numb to the world. Everybody thought I was so strong, but inside I was just felt like I was, my needs weren't getting met, but I just didn't know how to get those needs met. And, the world is a very selfish place anyway. So eventually, as I got older, what happened was the heart chakra. Everybody talks about the heart chakra. Well, what actually is a transformative thing is when someone actually loves you, when you allow yourself to be loved, the key, your heart gets unlocked. And you're able to fall apart and be vulnerable. But you have to learn how to identify the person who is safe for you to be vulnerable with, that you can fall apart with. So these are some tips I want to tell you. I really want to tell you, hey, it's about a shattered soul, about trauma. It's about having no boundaries, not learning how to say no, and feeling shameful and guilt for asking for help. Denying yourself. Burnout, that's one symptom of it. It's constantly churning of burnout. Dating narcissistic people who are constantly take, and they never replace it. And they make you feel guilty for even asking for, to be compensated, to be loved in return, because they have no idea how to love either. They were traumatized too, but they end up becoming a vampire instead of an empath. And so therapy as well. So really, please consider therapy. I'm a soul counselor, so I do help people. I also do spiritual advisement and so forth to help people overcome boundaries. But it's really important that you make this like one of your number one goals. Once it's safe for you and you get all your basic needs met, that at this stage of your life, that you make this a number one goal in your life. Not to be selfish. And I'm not talking about being a sociopath or narcissist, but learning how to say no and notice in your body the discomfort that you feel by saying no. But just let it resonate. And if you need to cry for that inner child, and just keep practicing saying no. You'll start seeing that the amount of people attracting to you is going to go from here to here. And that might be uncomfortable being alone, but you want you want the right person to come in through the eye of the needle. Okay, so anyway, I really want to appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any more questions about empaths or anything about the spiritual nature or the psychology, because as we know, psychology is the study of the soul, inbox me, or I encourage you also to if you're new to my group, it is the Kundalini and Spirituality group. Feel free to post questions, and it's all about vulnerability and being in a safe space. It's not about judging people. It's about coming in curious, and so that you can transform and grow. Okay. So once again, thank you so much. Please repost this on your page, especially if you know people who can benefit from this, because you know that these are kind of like occult hitting information. They don't want you to be healed. They want you to be wounded, because it's $1 billion business. So please repost this video, share in the groups that you're in. And once again, thank you so much for joining me. Ta-ta.